Welcome. I'm Sakile Granum. I'm a research analyst at ICF. We're a partner on the Workforce Innovation Network in collaboration with net.America, and we're really excited to kick off this informative conversation on registered apprenticeship programs and disability. Today, we'll be discussing bridging the disability gap, encouraging equity in registered apprenticeships. Registered apprenticeships are often underutilized as an employment option for disabled and neurodiverse individuals. And in this panel discussion, we'll just be focusing on how to bridge the gap between workforce intermediaries and individuals with disabilities, especially those with neurodiverse um, disabilities. We also have a speaker who I will be presenting. Her name is Danielle Sherlouse. She's a senior workforce consultant at ICF with 29 years of experience within workforce development and human services, specifically leading federal and state Department of Labor funded programs. She's a background specializing in work with youth and adults with disabilities. Ms. Charlus designed and directed the 5M Center for Employment Services and Vocational Opportunities for Individuals with Developmental Disabilities and Autism Spectrum Disorder. She continues to cultivate her leadership through completion of programs such as the National Leadership Consortium on Developmental Disabilities at the University of Delaware and the State of Connecticut, and as a subject matter expert in competitive integrated employment and customized employment with a concentration in discovery, job development, negotiation, and placement, and post-employment supports. She's demonstrated success in career pathway training, apprenticeships, work-based learning, and job placement, creating life-impacting programs for the hardest to serve populations within disability, alternative to corrections, and youth systems. She's been executive director of 4 nonprofits, securing funding from local, state, and federal entities, such as the U.S. Department of Agriculture, CT Department of Labor, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and many others. She offers subject matter expertise in workforce development topics, including but not limited to training, customized employment, competitive integration, employment, re-employment, apprenticeship, career pathways, and other sectoral approaches. So now I will hand over the presentation to Danielle. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. And I appreciate the opportunity to discuss encouraging equity in registered apprenticeship programs, or RAPs, for neurodiverse youth and adults. And it's my pleasure to share with you today some professional and lived experience on neurodiversity. A slide, please. The goal of today's session is to promote the sustainable development of inclusive apprenticeship programs for youth and adults. And today I'm going to focus on neurodiversity. However, many of the principles that I will discuss can be applied broadly to most disabilities. When thinking of how to increase inclusion within apprenticeships, we first need to address the overall underrepresentation of neurodiverse individuals within apprenticeship programs. Whereas some RAPs excel in this capacity, traditionally RAPs are underused as an employment option for neurodiverse people, despite opportunities to gain experience with core job skills. To try and mitigate this, I will describe some strategies to support sponsors and practitioners during this brief overview. Upon conclusion of today's session, you can view the toolkits that ICF created for this purpose for its Cybersecurity Youth Apprenticeship Initiative, which you may find useful. Since it will be difficult to see the chat while facilitating, I will answer questions at the end. Through my work as an employment support professional, or ESP, combined with my background in workforce development, I found a particular purpose in educating other ESPs on the value of RAPs and the unique platform they offer to support neurodiverse individuals on their career journey. To be successful, I feel that it's important to work in partnership with practitioners, as they play a key role in helping employers and sponsors support neurodiverse apprentices. During this presentation, I do understand that certain data or services, funding, and RAP options will vary from state to state, and that some concepts may or may not be interchangeable between youth and adults, or that there may be different titles or names used for services and professionals in this space. I'm happy to answer any clarifying questions at the end. Next slide, please. I feel we can all agree that many neurodiverse individuals are missing out on all-important opportunities to thrive in apprenticeships. And as a result, employers are missing out on invaluable experience and untapped talent. If the sector, meaning training providers, practitioners, sponsors, and employers, work together closely to align thinking and resources, we are headed on the right path to inclusion and diversity in RAPS. Neurodivergent apprentices are more likely to complete their training, develop strong relationships with their employer, and become a productive member of the integrated workforce. Despite the positive outcomes noted, when it comes to providing job opportunities for neurodiverse people, as a country, we've historically been very poor. Neurodifferences are often stigmatized, invisible, or masked, and this group often does not have representation on the D&I agenda despite 20% of the population being neurodivergent. Next slide. The benefits of early workforce exposure and career programming for youth and young adults is significant. Creating and fulfilling income-generating job opportunities for young people can have direct positive consequences for poverty alleviation in their future. Research shows that when young people are connected to the workforce, it increases the likelihood that they will be employed and earn family-sustaining wages later in life, as these youth will have competitive skills or gainful employment as they enter adulthood. As we explore targeted recruitment to neurodiverse youth, we first need to better understand potential barriers if we're to attract more apprentices with special educational needs or disabilities. Just so we're on the same page about the definition, neurodiverse youth are aged 16 to 24, and they possess unique strengths and experience challenges due to the way their brains process information. Neurodivergent is a term that describes an individual with less typical cognitive variation, such as autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia, executive functioning challenges, developmental disabilities, and others. The National Institute of Health reports that 1 in 5 people across the globe are considered to be neurodivergent. So this is not an insignificant number or considered rare. A few unique abilities among some neurodivergent thinkers may include visual memory, attention to detail, enjoying repetition, pattern recognition, hyperempathy or the ability to hyperfocus, and creative thinking. And on the other hand, there are also major characteristics to further keep in mind that are just as unique to the person, such as potential organization problems, a failure to give close attention to details, difficulty processing information quickly, talking excessively or interrupting others when talking, or impatience. Next slide, please. The ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, does not contain a definitive list of medical conditions that constitute disabilities. Instead, the ADA defines a person with a disability as someone who, 1, has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, or 2, has a record of such an impairment, or 3, is regarded as having such an impairment. Although not here today to provide an in-depth training on disabilities or about how to determine whether a person has a disability under the ADA, I do want to highlight one form of neurodivergence commonly discussed and often misunderstood, which is autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. ASD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that is characterized by persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts, including deficits in social reciprocity, nonverbal communicative behaviors used for social interaction, and skills in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships. Some people with ASD have a known difference, such as a genetic condition, and scientists believe there are multiple causes of ASD that act together to change the most common ways people develop. We still have much to learn about these causes and their impact. The CDC reports that about 1 in 44 children have been identified with ASD before the age of 3. And ASD is reported to occur in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups. ASD can last throughout a person's life, and some people are not diagnosed until adolescence or adulthood. This delay means that people with ASD might not get the help that they need or want to cultivate employment and life skills. ASD may involve some of the limitations I'm about to discuss, but seldom all of them. People with ASD may or may not behave, communicate, interact, or learn in ways that are different from neurotypical peers. There's often nothing about how they look that sets them apart from other people. Some individuals with ASD may or may not have comorbidities or tics or engage in stimming. The abilities of people with ASD can vary significantly. For example, some people with ASD may have advanced conversation skills, whereas others may be nonverbal. Some people with ASD need a lot of help in their daily lives, and others can work and live with little to no support. The first U.S. study of autism in adults estimates that 2.2% of Americans have an autism spectrum condition, and that adds up to 5.4 million people age 18 and older, or about 1 in 45 people. Youth with ASD presently have bleak employment outcomes. Imagine being a youth on the spectrum and being told that 90% of adults with ASD are unemployed or underemployed, or that these outcomes won't change by much, even if you secure a college degree. 85% of adults with ASD who have a college degree still also remain unemployed or underemployed. Slide, please. Neurodiverse adults of all conditions continue to contend with underemployment. Part-time jobs or careers without options for upskilling, or those with non-livable wages. Now, if we look at some of the reasons why only 10% of adults with autism are in any kind of employment, what's clear through research and conversation is that it's not due to a lack of interest in work or skill. Rather, there remains some fear among employers. One report highlighted that the majority, about 60% of employers, were worried about getting support for an employee with autism wrong. And that same percentage didn't know where to go for help or advice about employing a person with a disability such as autism. In some states, it's still legal to pay adults with disabilities sub-minimum wage. Initiatives centered on Employment First, which is a national systems change framework centered on the premise that all individuals, including those individuals with the most significant disabilities, are capable of full participation in competitive, integrated employment, and community life, focus on advocacy in this area. But the fact remains, most of the workers in sub-minimum wage programs are people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. These adults are often paid for piecework, or they're unpaid volunteers as part of a sheltered workshop. These workshops pay tens of thousands of people with disabilities an average wage of $3.34 an hour, where they perform tasks like bagging newspapers or wrapping silverware and napkins. And their wages are calculated by timing how long it takes each worker to complete their task and comparing that productivity to an experienced worker without disabilities. So for this reason, supporting neurodiverse youth early on in their career journey through work-based learning may minimize instances of neurodiverse adults entering careers that they do not want. Many adults with disabilities navigate around what we in the disability space call the 4 F's of employment. This means food preparation and service, filth, cleaning and janitorial service, flowers, simple landscaping, farming or decoration, and factories or light assembly work, or other non-meaningful chosen careers. And that's the key point: having career choices and securing meaningful quality careers. Whereas the work I just pointed out can be noble, if your career choice does not lie in the path of the 4 F's, and everyone thinks it does because you have a cognitive disability, how is that meaningful employment? Sponsoring quality and inclusive RAPs can be an essential part of the solution to this problem, and we need to think differently if we hope to solve problems. Next slide, please. So RAPs that foster inclusion of neurodiverse individuals can meet both participant and employer needs. From a youth perspective, many youth and school-based professionals are unfamiliar with RAPs as a career option, or know that many aim to be inclusive. Finding ways to connect to youth directly is very important. To be in line with DOL's youth employment work strategy that sets a clear vision for young people in the workforce system and emphasizes connections to public and private sector partners. Sponsors should forge connections with ESPs. These staff are often noted as job coaches, job developers, transition employment specialists, and employment consultants who serve a wide variety of individuals with disabilities. These relationships will connect sponsors to youth. Finding a job can be an overwhelming challenge for neurodiverse youth, more so than neurotypical youth. And this process can be made easier through partnerships with community-based organizations, educators, or community colleges. For example, if RAP sponsors partner with high schools, it serves a dual purpose. As required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, transition services must be included in a student's individualized education program by the time a student reaches the age of 16, though preferably sooner. A student's IEP or 504 accommodations offer options for the development of employment and other post-school adult living objectives. This could include work-based learning, such as pre-apprenticeships. RAP sponsors could cultivate relationships with vocational rehabilitation, or VR, to support neurodiverse high schoolers. VR offers in-school youth 14 to 21 pre-employment transition services until the age of 22. This could support youth apprentices in the workplace with resources such as funding, job coaching, and related employment supports. For high school graduates, partnerships with community colleges can offer valuable resources to the training component of the RAP. Their experience with diverse learners can support the inclusive design of the related training instruction, and they can provide the instruction. There are various options for sponsors and employers of RAPs to leverage funding. Opportunities specific to neurodiverse individuals may include vocational rehabilitation support. And for youth, this might mean the VR, pre-employment training, or level up services I mentioned. These titles are vary from state to state. But neurodiverse students under the age of 22 who are eligible for VR services and enrolled in apprenticeships can still benefit from these services. VR provides access to free services and resources for both youth and adults, such as consultation on workplace modifications or tax credits, and much more. And depending upon the infrastructure and expertise of a RAP sponsor in the disability services field, there may be options through VR to connect with or actually become a community rehabilitation provider or an approved on-the-job training program. CRPs and training programs can often receive funds for trial work experiences, job placement, instruction, on-the-job training, and job coaching. Be aware, too, of traditional funding streams through workforce, such as WIOA Title I, Title III employment services, and Title IV funds, ITAs, TANF, and SNAP employment and training funds, which can all be braided to support the apprentice, trainer, or employer. Next slide, please. Thank you. If you're a workforce intermediary, one helpful step is to host listening sessions to practitioners in the disability space, as well as one-to-one interviews with program sponsors and employers. During these conversations, you can capture feedback, noting any misconceptions about apprenticeships or neurodiversity, and explain career pathway options for and to neurodiverse individuals. In the listening sessions that I've held, practitioners often did not know about apprenticeships in non-construction industries. It was clear that despite the efforts of intermediaries and sponsors, we still need to get the message out to providers through developed strategies and innovations on ways in which providers can work with sponsors to provide appropriate guidance for neurodiverse individuals to choose apprenticeships as an option. This dialogue and level of partnership is important if we are to assist employer partners in building a strong and diverse pipeline of skilled workers. Sponsors can benefit from the experience of ESPs, especially with neurodiverse apprentices who may need the ESP's in-depth support to assist them with confidence or accommodations or career skills or successful work strategies, such as creating a task analysis or implementing accommodations. Employers can benefit from information provided by ESPs on ways to foster neuro-inclusivity in the workforce, which can grow their business. Intermediaries might facilitate a consortium of employers, sponsor, and practitioner partners to listen in and highlight how different work environments and apprenticeship standards could work in practice. For example, how an IT apprenticeship can be remote, hybrid, or on the job, or how RAPs can be customizable. Intermediaries can also bring together subject matter experts to discuss challenges and develop solutions and learn from one another. And as a final step, workforce intermediaries can help RAPs develop tools to measure outcomes, to continually inform and refine programs, and of course, celebrate success. Next slide, please. So neurodiverse youth do face distinct challenges in their career journey, and many benefit from the support of school-based professionals such as guidance counselors, school psychologists, special education instructors, or ESPs to work with them as they identify their professional abilities and make informed career choices. As a workforce system, I know we strive to better serve all youth, including youth with disabilities and other disconnected youth. And we need to help engage in discussions such as how to secure a benefits analysis to understand the impact of employment on their eligibility for public benefits, as well as resources such as Social Security Administration ticket to work funds, ABLE accounts, which are taxed advantage savings accounts, understanding options for accommodations, supporting specific learning needs, or providing on-the-job support. ESP should share numerous resources to help youth navigate the process of career selection. And to do so effectively, it's important for ESPs to develop relationships with workforce professionals, such as RAP sponsors and workforce boards. There are available resources and funding streams to support neurodiverse youth that RAP sponsors may not know about without the collaboration of a disability support professional. ESP's guidance on funding specific to youth state-approved budget, where applicable, is important to capture. And further, school-based professionals can work with the school system to update a student's IEP or 504 accommodations with the pre-RAP or RAP in mind. ESPs can help collaborate to customize elements of the RAP model. Most ESPs are familiar with customized employment, which is a successful strategy for achieving competitive integrated employment that benefits many people, including neurodiverse people. They can work with program sponsors to apply these principles to training and in the design process. The experience of ESPs will emphasize the use of inclusive language and its impact on a positive workplace culture. ESPs can share facts about workplace accommodations or modifications to employers and discuss topics such as disclosure, offer insight on how to effectively manage neurodiverse apprentices, including the role of a job coach and how supervising is a different modality to job coaching, all of which helps increase the success of the apprentice, thereby reducing negative outcomes and perceptions at the work site. So it is really a journey into a career. If sponsors and employers can offer hands-on opportunities to future apprentices, it will serve as both a career exploration opportunity and a unique recruitment strategy. Through structured hands-on experiences at the worksite, neurodiverse individuals can learn more about their career interests and identify what skills they have or may need to develop for their chosen career pathway in the RAP. This is a scalable practice for youth and adults. Some steps that sponsors and employers should take to bolster career exploration and the recruitment of neurodiverse youth to registered apprenticeship programs include identifying or creating videos or photos of employees in the workplace to help neurodiverse individuals and ESPs understand expectations and roles, such as creating a snapshot of a day in the life at the employer or of the apprentice. This is particularly helpful if in-person visits are not possible or for remote work. It helps to contextualize the opportunity. And by working with RAP sponsors and employers, ESPs can secure information on career pathways, and they can work with sponsors to schedule worksite visit tours, informational interviews, as well as refer individuals who can engage in job shadows, internships, or the RAP itself. And prior to formal acceptance into the RAP, consider a working interview for youth or adults. This is an in-person interview that takes place on the job where a person can be assigned some job duties and observed through paid experience. During the working interview, sponsors and employers can observe a candidate's interests and ability performing a specific job or task, rather than rely upon a traditional interview, which is not always a successful determinant of these factors or an inclusive hiring practice for neurodiverse individuals. This brings into play discovery. Discovery is an evidence-based alternative to traditional assessment that serves as the foundation for customized employment. Coordinating individualized discovery can help youth or adults determine their employment considerations for a job match. For youth, the information gleaned from discovery can assist school-based professionals and the youth in understanding their employment considerations, as well as aid in identifying the types of employers that can meet these requirements. Discovery culminates into the development of a discovery profile. This is more than just a dream job list. It's a defined set of strengths and interests, needs as key factors for successful employment. Factors such as working or not working at a large employer, or the preference of a small employer, and the preference to work in a non-customer facing position, or needing limited phone interaction. It identifies preferred tasks and preferred types of industries. All are examples noted in the profile. And to support discovery, educators or ESBs in the case of adults should focus on person-centered planning, increasing self-determination, setting realistic goals, building awareness of any workplace accommodation need or modification, as all of this is essential prior to graduation, prior to the formal job application, and definitely before the first day of work. Many practitioners don't realize how valuable this created discovery profile can be to an American Job Center staff person or a RAP sponsor, or that AJCs are required by WIOA to be both physically and programmatically accessible to individuals with disabilities. By working with the AJCs or career one-stop centers, practitioners can connect youth to services for RAP entry, job searches, and training. Practitioners should use a variety of tools to assist neurodiverse individuals with their career journey. This includes selecting an appropriate career or interest assessment, interpreting the results, and offering career counseling and resources as individuals transition into work-based learning. While there are benefits to traditional assessments, discovery better supports neurodiverse persons. While assessments are a useful starting point in one's career journey, the questions are often difficult to generalize, and the result of comparative assessments just perpetuates exclusion from employment. I recall using a traditional assessment and others in my work, and very few, if any, have been normed upon this population. They speak in very broad terms, asking questions like, do you enjoy working outdoors? And I recall while giving this assessment on a sunny day to a youth with developmental disabilities who had limited work or volunteer experience, that for sure, when asked this question on a sunny day, he looked outside and said yes. But during inclement weather, even when asked about the same tasks, his answer was much different. And then performing outdoor work, which can include lifting heavy lawn equipment or working in an amusement park or working outdoors with children or animals, that changes the responses altogether. So it's difficult for some neurodiverse people to generalize the questions on many of these assessments. And this challenge grows even greater if you've had limited involvement in the workforce. Next slide. So what does neuro-inclusivity look like in practice? To ensure success for neurodiverse youth and adults, inclusion must start at recruitment. Throughout recruitment to onboarding, RAPs must administer accessible hiring and training practices. There are common traits of neurodiverse persons that must be kept in mind when implementing recruitment policies, such as omitting traditional interviews. We've heard of the expectation that interviewees look the interviewer directly in the eye, and for some neurodiverse individuals, this can cause great anxiety, or for some people, they need to look away in order to listen or process information. The working interview, discovery, reviewing a visual resume, offering career exploration. These are all more inclusive strategies than traditional interviews. Accessibility is essential to inclusion. Inclusive models are distinguished by full access, work accommodations, and essential support throughout all phases of the RAP. The Department of Labor's Partnership on Inclusive Apprenticeship developed an inclusive apprenticeship toolkit that can be used by intermediaries or employers when developing inclusive apprenticeships. Scanning the work environment for its culture and process is also important. From how employees clock in each day, to lunch breaks, to finding out the next steps to perform when tasks are completed. Some neurodiverse people may get very anxious about social situations and are often noted as missing the cues of the hidden curriculum of the workplace. The hidden curriculum of work refers to unwritten, unofficial, and often unacknowledged lessons that are taught and learned in the workplace, such as how to dress or hierarchy, to what types of communication styles are considered acceptable. Some individuals may miss the nuances of sarcasm or humor. This causes the person to prefer working alone, or they find it difficult to make work friends. It's important for employers to understand and be clear that this doesn't mean that they don't fit in or they're not a team player. Many simply need support, such as a task analysis, reframing, or clear instruction. RTI providers should support neurodiverse apprentices with attaining the necessary credentials and skills to succeed. Integrate inclusive principles such as universal design, include reasonable accommodation resources that ensure all apprentices can participate in training. Accessibility can be provided through technology, job coaching, and training materials offered in an accessible format, and with the support of an ESP partner. Offer industry credentials, as this may be the first instance when a neurodiverse person qualifications verified by a third party possessing the authority to issue relevant credentials. I encourage you to challenge your assumptions. Please be mindful to not assume all neurodiverse individuals will experience any of the unique traits I described or be an immediate fit for an apprenticeship. Apprenticeships are a great option for some, but others may benefit from supported employment options, a customized job, or may need more time in pre-apprenticeship programs. Essentially, the one takeaway from today is the right support at the right place and the right time. By bringing multiple stakeholders together, it's easier to overcome barriers that are often very individual to the apprentice. Educate, review, and modify internal processes to support an inclusive work environment. For instance, some apprentices can find it hard to say how they feel and take things very literally. Others may have no problem at all, but may express themselves too bluntly or in a way that's not appropriate for the workplace. So working with managers to adapt communication style accordingly is paramount to a successful working relationship. Having the same routine every day is also very important to some people. Something even more crucial to consider as we all work to adopt hybrid models. None of this is reason enough for employers to avoid taking on a neurodiverse apprentice. Neurodiverse apprentices can bring many benefits to the workplace, such as reliability and dramatically lower turnover rates than their neurotypical peers. They can have strengths such as focus and memory, whereas others may only need simple tools for time management. Each will provide the ability to offer a unique perspective. So again, please keep in mind that every person is different and that these are not meant to be blanket statements. The point here is to ensure neurodiverse learners aren't lost behind. Through apprenticeships, we can ensure that a key population that is traditionally underserved achieves career success. People who are neurodiverse are 8 times more likely to be unemployed than people without a disability, and that's a shameful statistic. We have a great opportunity through apprenticeships to ensure everyone receives the support and resources that they need to reach an equal outcome and achieve their personal aspirations. On this next slide, I offer a full list of resources and references at this link, and I am happy also to answer any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you so much, Naya. That was fantastic. We do have one question from Twitter. It says, in your experience, what are some effective approaches for recruiting and retaining individuals with disabilities in registered apprenticeships, and how can we ensure long-term success within these programs?
Thank you. So, truly, I feel the most important strategy for recruitment is to take a grassroots approach and really develop partnerships within your community. Reach out to the organizations that are serving individuals with disabilities and offer to come in program, but even more so, invite them to your program, let them tour, offer some opportunities, work in partnership to achieve some of those discoveries. There are so many now, the American Job Centers or the chambers or disability serving programs where you can connect to employment support professionals who would truly value the opportunity to help fill your programs with capable youth and adults.
Thank you. I think we have two more questions. Okay. How can intermediaries collaborate with employers and training providers to create tailored support systems that address the specific needs and strengths of neurodiverse apprentices, ultimately enhancing their overall experience and success in the program? That's a really good question.
Thank you. I think, again, it goes back to working in partnership. So, when you're building your when you're building your program, of course, you're first going to want to talk with the employer to learn about what occupations, where is their turnover, where are you hiring, what are your greatest needs. And
Mm-hmm.
as you begin to develop that program, the training providers, the sponsors, the employment support professionals, the employer, you really work together that it's a customizable approach. Registered apprenticeship program or a pre-registered apprenticeship program with the feedback from everyone, because everyone has the same objective in mind, which is, to ensure that people are gainfully employed and that they're keeping and retaining that job. And so I would work in concert, customize each approach, allow for job coaches to be on site and work with the individuals if they need to. That's something that I have found as a barrier at times. Some of the employers may not have an environment of learning where even their own employees aren't necessarily receiving mentoring. To have a job coach come on site, which is very important to some people, they're not provided access or the ability to really work alongside the person in order to help the employer, to help that job candidate be successful. So really understanding accommodations and support, talking together just to achieve this, what I recommend.
And that's really good. So yeah, I like what you said about customizable approaches. In my own experience, just speaking to different stakeholders within like the workforce development space, a big issue that workforce intermediaries often have is how do we convince employers overall to kind of be invested in registered apprenticeships. And I think with that type of challenge, there is even like an added they may feel like an added burden when dealing with neurodiverse individuals. So I guess for me, I would also kind of, just think of like as a follow-up question, what advice maybe you have for workforce intermediaries or just other stakeholders that really want to convince employers to get on board? What advice do you have for them? And also like what misconceptions do you think are most important to dispel for employers when considering, trying to convince them to be invested in this particular demographic?
Certainly, I understand that it's a challenge just in general to get employer buy-in at times for a registered apprenticeship program, and then to approach it with an added layer of seeking a target population, some makes it even more challenging. What I think is essential is to highlight the fact that there aren't really truly accommodations that are going to require a lot of money necessarily. Some people may or may not need them at all. And to highlight the benefits of hiring a person with neurodiversity or disability in general. Turnover rate is going to be lower, that they bring so much to the workforce, highlight the specific talents of that person. So each person, of course, is different. They might have a visual resume that they can approach and share with the employer. They might be able to help them customize a job. Employers are going to want to know what's in it for me. And basically, it's that you're going to have a strong candidate who's capable of this position, and you're not going to have to fill it again in hopefully another year or two. I think highlighting those best practices, but also the strengths of the person themselves is very important.
I think that's good. I also think often about whenever we make accommodations for people who we consider to be marginalized, there is kind of like this assumption that you're kind of going out of your way to do something that doesn't necessarily feel like a net positive or a net profit for you, because it seems like you're rearranging everything for this seemingly small group of people. But I think a lot of times what people don't realize, what employers don't realize, is that when you make room for neurodiverse people or for marginalized people in general, it oftentimes makes your workplace more productive for everyone else, right? Because
Yes.
there are lots of people who aren't necessarily neurodiverse, or even, if you really want to get more complicated about it, there are a lot of undiagnosed neurodiverse people who are already working, who've probably been, masking and trying to, assimilate their whole lives, and, thinking about the fact that you may already have hired neurodiverse people who may be fantastic employees, or maybe fantastic apprentices, and you don't even know because they don't know that they're neurodiverse. So I think it's really good to just think about these things from like a broader perspective, and that if just a little bit of innovation, that so many different people can really benefit from different employment opportunities, and that employers can benefit from different types of workers as well. So thank you for
Absolutely.
that.
Yes, if employers in general have an inclusive workplace culture, just in general, that's the culture of your environment. You're one that is a learning environment. You're respectful of every person and of everyone's background in general. You'll find that the accommodations a person may have typically requested, such as maybe a flexible work schedule, or instead of taking an hour lunch break, maybe a person needs to take several 10-minute breaks throughout the day, or mentoring, coaching. If that's all embedded in your culture already, you won't even notice some of the accommodations that might be required. But it does require the practitioners to really work with people to identify what their needs are going to be prior to stepping foot into the job, if at all possible.
Nice. We do have one more question from LinkedIn. Are there any specific accommodations or support mechanisms employers should consider implementing to create an inclusive and supportive environment for neurodiverse apprentices?
I feel that accommodations are really something that's personal to each person. They're very individual. One person with ADHD might require time management tools, whereas another may not, because that's not their challenge. So I really think that you have to allow for the culture of the workplace to make it so comfortable that someone would be able to approach their supervisor and say, this is what I think that I would really need to do my job better. So certainly some of the things you can implement in advance are, employee about working with different people, different backgrounds and diverse abilities, and things of that nature, because that's going to create the work environment where people aren't afraid to ask for help or ask for what they might need at work. Making it accessible at work to contact a human resource person in the event I do want to disclose, and I do want to share what my accommodations are going to be. How do I do that? Those kinds of systems are very important. So I would say the first step is culture. Really look at your culture, from recruitment to how you're interviewing to how you're supervising, to the tasks. Sometimes we have to get around the fact that maybe we want a task done this way. We have it in our mind that this is the only way that it could be done, but it's not. There are a variety of different ways to approach different tasks to complete it. It's the outcome that matters. So, be flexible in your thinking. That would be some things you could do ahead of time.
Fantastic point. We have another question. Um, is there a particular, I guess it's a bit of a typo. Is there something particular a company should advertise that they welcome persons with disabilities and will make accommodations?
I think certainly any marketing related to success stories or best practices, or just that highlight the culture of your company, that's one of the best key steps that you could take. Best way to is looking for a poster that says diverse people. If in general you're advertising how, sorry, am I still here? Okay, my power went down. So if in general you're advertising inclusive hiring strategies, or you're talking about your D&I opportunities and objectives, and your mission is clear about your company, and people can click on it and see some of the things that your company is involved in at a grassroots level or at a community level, and they're seeing people in positions of authority, or their peers of different backgrounds, and I think that that's what's very important.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I'm not sure if we have any more questions. Just wait and see. Okay, no, guess not. Thank you so much, Danielle. This was really, really informative. Um, I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for lots of different employers and lots of different stakeholders to really kind of consider on like a larger from like a larger perspective, their practices, their assumptions, not just about your neurodiverse individuals, but about just their assumptions in general about what constitutes a good worker, what constitutes a good employee, um, what defines productivity, and how it can look, and how it can be different from person to person, from situation to situation. Again, a lot of these accommodations, I think, work for lots of different people across the board, right? Like I think a lot of these things are broadly applicable as well, right? So thinking about, single parents, even people with physical disabilities. And I think that's also an important part too, right? A lot of times when we think about disabilities, we think about things that are visible.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you aren't, on a crutch or like in a wheelchair, it's kind of there's this air of like, are you really disabled? Like, is there really something that you're struggling with, or is there really something happening? And I think moving away from that kind of like, you know, punitive way of thinking or like reductionist way of thinking can be very helpful because, you end up creating more possibilities for solutions, and you end up creating more diversity, not just in terms of the types of people that you employ, but the types of ways that you can be productive. You know what I mean? So this has been a fantastic discussion. I just want to know if you have any closing remarks, anything that you want to say before we close out.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity today to talk to everyone. And, I just think it's a great registered apprenticeship programs offer a great opportunity for work-based learning for youth and adults, for all people. And so I'm just trying to find a way to hopefully spear that on and get a little bit more inclusive with our practices, and reaching out to young adults, especially who have neurodiversity, who are neurodiverse, because they're missing out. And so I really appreciate your ear today, and I welcome any questions. If you think of any after, please reach out to me.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thanks to net.America and all of our other partners for support and hosting us today. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Sakila.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.